What was the big takeaway for you from today, Siddharth?
Well, the big takeaway is that as far as the markets are concerned, a bottom for the Adani stocks hasn't been found, and no one can find it, no one can call it. And it's certainly not our intention to talk about the bottom. But what's a fact is that between 56% to 22% of market cap of the Adani pack, as it is called, Adani Total Gas, the highest loser at 56%, followed by the FPO entity, Adani Enterprises, just around 55%. And if we keep looking at this share fall, tomorrow you will have one more day of trade. But between the 24th of January to the 2nd of February, Shiv, these 10 days are actually, they basically a new era in some ways has started for the Adani Group. 10 days back, if you had asked me the same question, my answer would have been very different. Today, there are very few analysts who are venturing out in public to take a call. The big question, as we discussed last night, and I'll quickly frame that again for our viewers to comprehend, is for a fast-growing, mega sort of industrial conglomerate like Adani Group, this is a massive wake-up call with regard to future financing and the future growth rate that this company wants to enjoy. And, while Mr. Adani has stepped back, that's a corporate call. It's the board that has decided to do that. And there are two views on that, Shiv. Some people say it was obviously due to the 35% value erosion and the mark-to-market losses that this happened. There is another view that by stepping at this time, and I'm quoting somebody in the market who has asked me not to name him, he called it a master stroke. We'll have to see if eventually it proves to be either of the two.
Okay, so some are actually calling it a master stroke. I did, in fact, see quite a few, comments calling this move, bold and prudent and things like that. Abha, Gautam Adani came out with a video statement as well today after that notification to the, to the stock exchanges yesterday, as well as a press release that came out. Has Mr. Adani added anything more? To what we already know, or was it, just one of those things? The boss needed to put out that message and reach out to investors, in person.
I hear you, Shiv, and I think largely he was trying to reassure the investor community, also come out himself, right, and save face, so to say. But what was more interesting was what he didn't say. I mean, he's still talking about how the company is, well intact, on the road to growth. There is no fundamental problem. He clearly said that in his video, but he still hasn't addressed the questions around the group's leverage. Now, today on the stock markets as well, and we've been hearing, of course, from various global banks are already pulling out. We've been hearing from a whole host of other brokerages about how the Indian banks, or specific Indian banks, LIC, etc., are leveraged towards Adani. And regardless of the quantum, even if it's only 0.6% of the Indian banking system, it's still a formidable amount. And that's the big question.
It is, and it remains a big question for which, clarity is still awaited, along with 7 other questions that I'm going to be asking in just a moment. Siddharth, thanks very much for joining me, for that brief question. I know Siddharth and his team will be preparing for more coverage that you'll be seeing on BTTV as well as here on India Today through prime time on the Adani story. Abha continues to stay with me to answer some of those questions. But before that, Business Today's triple engine team, the one that's been keeping us completely ahead, miles ahead of everyone else, including Hindi channels, including all business channels on this crucial financial story. Udayan Mukherjee, Siddharth Zarabi and Abha, who's with me here, spoke to Kotak Asset Management's MD Nilesh Shah just a short while ago on what the repercussions of the Adani Group pulling the plug on this FPO could be. And if there are more concerns for the global markets, very, very crucial. Listen into this.
The withdrawal of the FPO, extraordinary circumstances and situations in the Indian market, and also for a large, fast-growing group like the Adani Group. Your first thoughts really, Nilesh, before all of us jump in?
From the investor point of view of the FPO, it's a very good move. They were staring at a mark-to-market losses immediately on investment. with the cancellation of FPO, that loss is avoided. So certainly beneficial for FPO investors. From the existing investor stroke lenders point of view, they have to reassess whether withdrawal of FPO will have any impact on the balance sheets or the growth plan. So essentially, depending upon where you are, you will have to evaluate your position.
Would it be a fair question to ask Nilesh Shah at this stage that post the Adani incident, wherever there is large external debt of Indian companies, the risk premium will shoot up sharply? I am taking this point beyond the immediate group, and whether there are broader concerns that you feel are likely to emerge.
So again, I don't think so that is likely to happen. For decades, India has received a far tighter spread compared to what its credit rating suggested. Number two, while Adani bonds are getting impacted, other Indian bonds are still trading at where they were trading before. Number three, as US interest rates have gone up and forwards have come down, the cost of borrowing in rupee market is now cheaper than cost of borrowing in global market on a fully hedged basis. There are few institutions like Exim Bank which has borrowed money in global market in recent times, but by and large companies are finding that rupee market is cheaper service global market. And to the Udayan point, when Satyam Saga opened, I was working in ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund. And you can check our portfolios. We had zero holding in Satyam Computer Services Limited. We had asked this question to Satyam management then. You show so much cash on the balance sheet, but where is the return? So it's not that mutual fund guys don't do the research. They do research. Sometimes we are right, sometimes we are wrong.
This was not intended for Nilesh at all. My point was a broader point, that all this great research which happens in the on Dalal Street sometimes actually misses the point completely. They are research analysts sitting in their own cubby holes in Lower Parel, and they are doing numbers. It's all Excel sheet management.
Okay, quick point before we head across for a break. Do debt investors do much better research? I believe to some extent that happens.
It may, but you look at the behavior of global rating agencies and how many times they have got caught out in the last 20 years. I mean, they are supposed to be the gold standard of this kind of debt-oriented research. And look at how S&P and Moody's have faltered over the people have lost all respect for rating agencies at a corporate level. So, I mean, what does all this research mean? I am not saying Adani Group's assets mean nothing. All that I am saying is that once things start unraveling, they have a habit of unraveling very quickly beyond what you think is possible, and therefore it's prudent to be cautious about how much can be liquidated and what is actually owned by a corporate entity before jumping to conclusions.
Now, this is simply too big a story to ignore, and some of these questions have half answers, most of these questions have no answers, but they still need to be asked. So here are the big questions that India today is asking at this time. Number one, will the cancellation of this FPO slow the bloodbath on Adani stocks? Now, we have a partial answer to that, but of course, we'll have to see how things go moving forward after today. Was this basically an act of cutting losses to stem worse damage? There appears to be consensus on that as well. Was this Gautam Adani's moral move, as he claims it was, or was this the corporate enterprise playing safe, seeing volatility? Number four, will this affect the Adani Group's growth plans? And there are many. Number five, will the Adani Group plan an FPO when things stabilize? He's also confirmed that the answer to that question is yes. Number six, how does this affect existing investors in the Adani Group? And will this blunt the political opposition's attack on the Adani Group, which is what's happening in Parliament at this point of time? And finally, was this a bold move to weather a bigger storm? So, Abha, I'll bring some of those questions to you. The bloodbath on Dalal Street, we saw what happened in the markets today. So that question appears to be answered. But, cutting losses to stem worse damage? I think the big question really is on everybody's mind is there worse ahead, or could this move sort of, stem the bleeding and put them in a position where they can navigate the turbulence a whole lot better?
So let's take a look at what happened today, Shiv, on the stock markets.
Yeah.
If we take a look at what happened today, we saw Adani Enterprises, which is the holding company for the entire group, see a loss of about 30%, right? Now, all of these stocks have already seen 30-40% lower since this entire carnage began. I mean, that's just in the span of like about a week, it's like 6-7 trading sessions. All the other Adani stocks, pretty much all of them were down at about 10% further again today. Only I think Adani Ports was up about down about 6%, so relatively still better. Now, if you put this into perspective, clearly these stocks are oversold. As an investor looking at this group company, would I look at possibly investing right now? It doesn't make any sense, does it? Until there's any some kind of clarity. Just because they have assets doesn't necessarily mean that these prices will be valuable. If they continue to deteriorate, because we have no clarity right now, if they continue to deteriorate, it's only further losses for any investor.
Right.
However, after some further cool off, and when valuations become even better, at those levels, you might start to see some buying activity resume. At that stage, it would be wise for investors to look at specific pickings within the Adani stocks.
Right.
So they do have stake, as you know, of course, in Ambuja ACC, which are slightly more insulated from this, being an acquired group. That will obviously continue to be something investors will pick up. Adani Ports is still something that could see some quality buying coming in at lower levels. Right. And then some of the others will take further time.
Final question in that case, Abha, is, and this is like I'm being basic about this, because in the statement, Mr. Adani does say that he will look at, funding future growth and, revisit this FPO possibility when things stabilize. Is there a view on when that could be, or how long that could take?
Shiv, we've been asking the same question, and I think that the foreign banks are clearly making it apparent that they're not going to be interested, at least anytime soon, right? We've already been seeing that in the reports that have coming in. Will he be able to raise it from, the domestic institutions? That remains to be seen. It's a big question mark. Regulatory questions are being raised.
Right.
There is a lack of transparency. So it still remains to be seen. But yes, at least returning that money to the investors this time is keeping him or saving him, in their good graces, to perhaps return to them at a better time. At least he'll still have some more goodwill.
Okay. Abha, thanks very much for getting us clarity on those crucial aspects of this. There are many more questions, and the BT TV team will be answering them in the days and the weeks ahead. Now, the ripples from this Adani situation, pulling the plug on that FPO, has gained momentum in today's Parliament session, as we had told you it would. The opposition parties, led by the Congress and its President Mallikarjun Kharge, questioned the Prime Minister's silence on the Adani revelations and demanded a Joint Parliamentary Committee probe into the allegations against the Adani enterprise. The opposition were up in arms, and within just 6 minutes, Parliament was, you said it was adjourned. Take a look at this.
प्रश्नों से समस्याएं हल समाधान होती है. प्लीज जाइए अपने मिशन पर.
This is all that happened in Parliament today.
आज 2 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है.
As the Adani controversy snowballed, the opposition had a one-point agenda for the budget session to demand answers from the government on the Hindenburg Adani papers. With the government making it clear that question hour will not be dropped, both houses were in session for a total of 6 minutes through the day.
The House stands adjourned to meet at 1100 hours on Friday, 3rd February 2023.
In a rare show of unity, opposition parties came together to raise their voice against the government and insist on an in-depth probe. The Congress led the fight both in and outside the House on the Adani showdown.
हमने एक नोटिस दी थी 267 के तहत, और ये नोटिस पे हम चर्चा चाहते थे, लेकिन हर वक्त हमारे नोटिसेस रिजेक्ट होते हैं और महत्वपूर्ण जो विषय है, मुद्दे हैं, जब हम उठाते हैं तो उसको चर्चा का अवकाश नहीं मिलता.
Other parties have echoed Congress's stand, accusing the Prime Minister of shielding Adani.
अमृतकाल में ये महाघोटाला है और इस महाघोटाले पे सदन में चर्चा कराओ, सुप्रीम कोर्ट से मॉनिटर्ड इसकी पूरी जांच कराओ और जेपीसी बनाओ। इस डिमांड के साथ हम लोग पार्लियामेंट में अपनी आवाज आज भी उठाए हैं, आगे भी उठाते रहेंगे।
जिस तरीके से घोटाला हम देख रहे हैं 2014 से एक ही ग्रुप को जिस तरीके का फायदा हो रहा है, फोर्ब्स में नंबर 3 या 4 पे आ जाते हैं और अब गिरावट हो रही है, ये सिर्फ स्टॉक मैनिपुलेशन और स्टॉक की ओवर प्राइसिंग की वजह से हुआ है। इसीलिए हम चाह रहे हैं कि एक जॉइंट पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी का गठन हो।
We want a proper investigation into what has happened, why this happened, and from the beginning. We can't just have these responses and close the chapter.
Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee meanwhile claimed that the government was close to collapse as a result of the market crash.
কালকে তো প্রায় সরকার পড়ে যাচ্ছিল। কেন পড়ে যাচ্ছিল? শেয়ার বাজারে ধস নেমেছিল। এবার কাউকে কাউকে রিকোয়েস্ট করে আমরা জানি তারা কারা, নামগুলো বলে আর আমি তাদের দুর্বিষহ করতে চাই না।
The showdown in Parliament is only likely to escalate in the coming days as the government has refused to budge, saying that the slotted discussion on the President's address must be allowed to go on. With the opposition breathing fire on the government over the Adani controversy, how long can the government hold off on a discussion in Parliament? Bureau Report, India Today.
And coming up next, we're taking you straight to beautiful Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh to show you how ancient rocks from Nepal have just arrived in Ayodhya. What are these rocks all about and what's going to be coming from these rocks? We'll take you straight to the holy city to tell you. That's next.